Hi. Hey, great to have you here on this clip. And hopefully, you watched the other clip that talked about the first 25 prophetic points that have happened or are happening since 1925 to now 2023. Now we're going to pick it up where we left off. And we're going to be taking a look at the 19 prophetic points that we're looking at shaping up, perhaps being in progress, perhaps some of them fulfilled between 2023 and 2024. And like I mentioned in the last clip, in the past 1,000 years, we have not had so many prophetic points, 19, that will be shaping up or in progress or fulfilled in such a short amount of time. 2 years. Never have had that. And when you take the totality, the first 25 and now the 19, a total of 44, it's like, wow. If we could just tap people on the shoulder and say, look at this. And as these things play out, it's going to be jaw-dropping for so many people around the world. We have over 2 billion people around the world who claim to be Christians. Do you think that they might be interested in having some validity, some proof about Bible prophecies actually playing out? Oh my gosh, for sure. And so you can see why I feel we can reach over 1 billion people very, very soon, very quick with this information. And this is the time to do it. As we go through the information, you're going to see that there's some very, very big things that are going to be playing out. The first 25, they probably didn't get you very excited about what they were. To me, I was really excited about them. But, you know, they weren't like earth-shaking events. Now, when I saw that Khomeini and Erdogan was pushing to the northwest and south and not to the east, I go, that is huge. That is prophecy in progress right there. So that was really, really exciting for me. And it's still going on. They're still doing that pushing. And so we're looking for, okay, what's going to happen next? And that's what we're going to be talking about right now. So let's go ahead and jump right in and start talking about prophetic point number 26, which is huge. And why is it huge? Well, let's read about it. In Daniel chapter 8, verse 21, it says, "And the rough goat is the first king of Grecia, and the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king." What are we talking about? I just jumped right into Daniel chapter 8, verse 21, and it talks about this he-goat that has this horn, and the horn is between his eyes. Let's read about prophetic point number 27, and it's going to tie into it. So in prophetic point number 27, it talks about Daniel chapter 8, verse 5. And since we're just getting started on this clip here, what I want to do is I want to read the first few verses of Daniel chapter 8 so you can get a pretty good context of what we're talking about here. Let's go ahead and just start with verse 1 of Daniel chapter 8. "In the 3rd year of the reign of King Belshazzar, a vision appeared unto me, even unto me, Daniel, after that which appeared unto me at the first. And I saw in the vision, and it came to pass, when I saw that I was at Susan, in the palace, which is in the province of Elam. And I saw in the vision, and I was by the river Ulai." Verse 3, "Then I lifted up mine eyes, and saw, and behold, there stood before the river a ram, which had 2 horns, and the 2 horns were high, but one was higher than the other, and the higher came up last. Verse 4, and I saw the ram pushing westward and northward and southward, so that no beast might stand before him, neither was there any that could deliver out of his hand. But he did according to his will, and became great. Now let's read verse 5. And as I was considering, behold, a he-goat came from the west, on the face of the whole earth, and touched not the ground. And the goat had a notable horn between his eyes. Let's go ahead and just read a couple more verses and get you a better context of what's going on here. Verse 6. And he came to the ram, which had two horns, which I had seen standing before the river, and ran unto him in the fury of his power. And I saw him come close unto the ram, and he was moved with choler against him, and smote the ram, and brake his two horns. And there was no power in the ram that he might stand before him, but he cast him down to the ground, and stamped upon him, and there was none that could deliver the ram out of his hand. All right, so the ram, in verse 20, we read that the ram represents the king of Media and the king of Persia. Now, in verse 21, we read that the rough goat is the king of Grecia, and the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king. All right, so now, getting back over here to prophetic point number 27, we can see that the he-goat came from the west on the face of the whole earth and touched not the ground. The he-goat had a notable horn, king, president, and I think that that's going to be President Trump. And we'll have to see. We'll have to find out. But here's what we're looking for, is that we are looking for the United States to attack Khamenei of Iran and Erdogan of Turkey, which is an ally of the United States right now, and to remove those two leaders. So does that sound like something that Biden would do? Or does that sound like something that Trump would do? Do you know of any other person that would do that? And I believe that that event is going to be fulfilled sometime in 2023 to 2024. We'll have to see, but that's my guess. All right, so 26, prophetic point is so huge to me when we are able to identify the U.S. president that is actually going to fulfill the prophecy of attacking Erdogan and Khamenei and removing them. He has to get in power. So this is when he gets in power. Okay, prophetic point number 27. We talked about the he-goat. Now number 28. Daniel chapter 8 verse 21 is the rough goat. And we talked about that one already. And that's the President Trump is what I believe it is. And so why is the angel referencing this horn as the first king of Grecia? Well, we've had many presidents. And why is he identifying this one as the first one? Well, we don't know how exactly Trump is going to get back in power. We do know that this is the first king or leader, president, that of Grecia that is being referenced in this vision. So maybe it's just as simple as that it's the first person of leadership of Grecia that is being referred to in this vision. All right, let's go down to prophetic point number 29. Daniel chapter 8 verse 7 again talked about how he breaks this he-goat breaks the two horns of the ram, and so we're going to have to see how that plays out to know what the interpretation is about being broken like that. All right, prophetic point number 30, Daniel chapter 11, verse 4, his kingdom, Kameni's kingdom, shall be broken. None of his prosperity shall be the new king's. And that's going to tie in with Revelation chapter 17, verse 10, where the fourth king, he's gone. And so we haven't read Revelation chapter 17, verse 10 in this clip yet. Let's go ahead and read that so you have context of it. In Revelation chapter 17, and we're going to read 10 and 11. It says, "And there are 7 kings, 5 are fallen, and 1 is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. And the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7, and goeth into perdition." John had seen an image of the beast that has 7 heads. And the 7 heads represent 7 mountains, and they also represent 7 kings. And we read about those 7 kings. 5 are fallen, and 1 is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. The whole image of the beast is represented by the 8th king. The 8th king represents that whole image. All right. So the first 5 kings, it just says that the first 5 are fallen. So we are looking to identify the 5 fallen. Now, it doesn't mention which country these kings are from. But we get that information from Daniel chapter 11. We've been reading about that. All right. So in Daniel chapter 11, verse 4, it talks about his kingdom being broken. Let's go ahead and read Daniel chapter 11, and we'll start with verse 2. "And now I will shew thee the truth. Behold, there shall stand up yet 3 kings in Persia, and the 4th shall be far richer than they all. And by his strength, through his riches, he shall stir up all against the realm of Grecia. And a mighty king shall stand up, which shall rule with great dominion, and do according to his will. And when he shall stand up, his kingdom shall be broken, and shall be divided towards the 4 winds of heaven, and not to his posterity, nor according to his dominion which he ruled. For his kingdom shall be plucked up, even for others besides those." All right. Prophetic point number 30 is that Kameni's kingdom is going to be broken, and it's not going to go towards his posterity. Prophetic point number 31, we're talking about the 4th king is fallen. He's gone. Prophetic point number 32, Daniel chapter 11, verse 5. "His, Kameni's kingdom, shall be divided into a kingdom of the north." And then in Daniel chapter 11, verse 6, we find that his kingdom, Kameni's, will be divided into a kingdom of the south. So it talks about being divided towards the 4 winds, but in these verses we specifically learn about there being a kingdom of the north and a kingdom of the south. So let's go ahead and read verses 5 and 6 of Daniel chapter 11. "And the king of the south shall be strong, and one of his princes, and he shall be strong above him, and have dominion, and his dominion shall be a great dominion. And in the end of years they shall join themselves together, for the king's daughter of the south shall come to the king of the north to make an agreement, but she shall not retain the power of the arm, neither shall he stand nor his arm, but she shall be given up, and they that brought her, and he that begat her, and he that strengthened her in these times." All right. So, prophetic point number 32 and 33, we learn about the kingdom of the north and the kingdom of the south. Now, it really gets more interesting as we go to prophetic Points 34 and 35 on. Let's go ahead and take a look at prophetic point number 34. It's simply talking about the fifth king is in power. But look at prophetic point number 35 and 36. This is huge. In Daniel chapter 11, verse 8, it mentions that Egypt is part of the kingdom of the south. But where does the kingdom of the south come from? Kingdom of the south and the kingdom of the north was once, as it is right now, part of Iran. Iran is going to split, and part of it is going to be the prophetic kingdom of the north. The other one is going to be the prophetic kingdom of the south. But as we read in Daniel chapter 11, verse 8, Egypt somehow, some way, is part of the kingdom of the south, which includes the southern part of Iran. To get better context, I want to just read verse 6, 7, and 8. And in the end of years, they shall join themselves together, for the king's daughter of the south shall come to the king of the north to make an agreement, but she shall not retain the power of the arm, neither shall he stand nor his arm, but she shall be given up, and they that brought her, and he that begat her, and he that strengthened her in these times. Verse 7. But out of the branch of her roots shall one stand up in his estate, which shall come with an army, and shall enter into the fortress of the king of the north, and shall deal against them, and shall prevail, and shall also carry captive into Egypt their gods with their princes, and with their precious vessels of silver and gold, and he shall continue more years than the king of the north. So, prophetic point number 35. We learn that Egypt somehow, some way, becomes part of the kingdom of the south. But it even gets bigger. Look at prophetic point number 36. How is this going to happen? In prophetic point number 36, it talks about Daniel chapter 11, verse 14, 16, 30, 31, and 45. Israel is part of the kingdom of the south. How is that going to happen? Fascinating. And we expect that to happen sometime between 2023 to 2024-ish. Oh, get your soda pop and popcorn. We got a show to watch. All right, let's go ahead and read Daniel chapter 11. And we already read to verse 8. Let's go ahead and pick it up in verse 9 and just read. So the king of the south shall come to his own kingdom, and shall return into his own land. But this is the king of the north's sons, shall be stirred up to and assemble a multitude of great forces. And one shall certainly come and overflow and pass through, then shall he return and be stirred up even to his fortress, which is the kingdom of the north. Verse 11. I'm going to have to add some words in here so it helps you understand what it's talking about. And the king of the south shall be moved with choler, and shall come forth and fight against him, even with the king of the north. And he, the king of the north, shall set forth a great multitude, but the multitude shall be given into his, the king of the south's, hand. Verse 12. And when he, the king of the south, hath taken away the multitude, his heart shall be lifted up, and he shall cast down many 10,000s, but he will not be strengthened by it. That was all about the king of the south. He's not going to be strengthened by it. Why? Look at verse 13. For the king of the north shall return and shall set forth a multitude greater than the former, and shall certainly come after certain years with a great army and with much riches. What did the king of the north do during those certain years to where he has this huge army and still has much riches left over? Oh, we talk about that later. Verse 14. Now, verse 14 is one of the verses that that is mentioned there in prophetic point number 36. And in those times there shall many stand up against the king of the south. Also the robbers of thy people shall exalt themselves to establish the vision, but they shall fall. Well, where is that place that they're going to try and establish the vision at? Well, that is in Jerusalem. They're talking about the Holy Land there. Now look at verse 15. So the king of the north shall come and cast up a mount, and take the most fenced cities, and the arms of the south shall not withstand, neither his chosen people. So now we're talking about chosen people. Where are the chosen people at, right? That's Israel area. Neither shall there be any strength to withstand. Verse 16 is referenced as part of prophetic point number 36. Let's go ahead and look at that. But he shall come against him, and shall do according to his will, and none shall stand before him. And he shall stand in the glorious land. What's the glorious land? Absolutely. It is the Jerusalem area, the Israel area, which by his hand shall be consumed. All right. Now, let's go ahead and one thing I want to point out is that this is talking about the second king of the north, and he's attacking this second king of the south over here. But what's interesting is that he's going to die. We'll read about that. And then, let me just get over here and show you. So after he's gone, then we have the seventh king, which is the raiser of taxes. And he dies after a few days. Now, remember in Revelation chapter 17, it talks about the seven kings. And it says, there are 5 fallen, and 1 is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. A short space, a few days. And then you have the 8th kings, and these go and fight against Christ when Christ returns in power and glory. So these are matching up. All right, so now what we're going to be talking about in verse 30 and 31 and 45 is the time during this time here of the vile person. That's talked about in Daniel chapter 11. He's going to go over and attack the kingdom of the south over here. And we're going to be reading about that. And then we'll be reading about his fate on the last verse of Daniel chapter 11. And that's when he goes to fight against Christ, when Christ returns in power and glory. All right, so let's get back over here. We were on prophetic point number 36. So the vile person is trying to attack the kingdom of the south, and his plan gets spoiled by the ships of Chittim. So let's go ahead and read verse 30. For the ships of Chittim shall come against him, that's the vile person, the 8th king. Therefore he shall be grieved and return with indignation against the holy covenant. So shall he do, and he shall even return and have intelligence with them that forsake the holy covenant, and the arms shall stand on his part. and they shall pollute the sanctuary of strength, and shall take away the daily sacrifice, and they shall place the abomination that maketh desolate. Well, you can see that this is talking about the Israel holy area. Now, verse 45. This is the vile person. And he, the vile person, shall plant the tabernacle of his palace between the seas in the glorious holy mountain, yet he shall come to his end, and none shall help him. So, what is the glorious holy mountain? That's the Mount of Olives. And what are the seas? Well, that's the Mediterranean Sea and the Dead Sea. So somehow, some way, we are taking a look at prophetic point number 36 is telling us that part of the kingdom of the south is Israel. Okay, now let's go down to prophetic point number 37. Daniel chapter 11, verse 5. Fifth king is the first king of the kingdom of the north, and he will be a prince to the king of the south. So the best way to get that is to read Daniel chapter 11, verse 5, and a little bit of verse 6. Let's go ahead and do that. And the king of the south shall be strong, and one of his princes, and he shall be strong above him, and have dominion, and his dominion shall be a great dominion. And in the end of the years they shall join themselves together, for the king's daughter of the south shall come to the king of the north to make an agreement. So we can see that's going to be prophetic points number 37. Now 38, we learned that in Daniel chapter 11, verse 10, that the king of the north will have sons. Let's go ahead and read verse 10. This is talking about the king of the north's sons. But his sons shall be stirred up, and shall certainly assemble a multitude of great forces. And one shall certainly come and overflow and pass through. Then shall he return and be stirred up even to his fortress. So it's really interesting when it's talking about the king of the north having sons. And it also talked about the king of the north is the prince to the king of the south. And we had talked about that the king of the south is from Egypt. So, are we seeing any indication how that could play out? Yes, because who is the leader in Egypt right now? It's Al-Sisi. Does Al-Sisi have any children? Yes, he has 4. He has 3 sons and 1 daughter. And the oldest son, he is, Mahmoud is his name, and he's been in the military, he's been in intelligence. I mean, he is high ranking, and he is being groomed to be a leader. So it's really interesting. And he has also been in peace negotiations with Israel. And so why is that important? Well, just real briefly, I believe, it's my thought, it's my guess, I'm just trying to connect the dots, that Trump is going to get back in power, and that he is going to want to bring peace to the Middle East. And who are the people that is standing in his way of accomplishing that? Well, I believe that it is absolutely Ayatollah Khomeini and President Erdogan. And so if he takes out those 2 leaders, then many people in those 2 countries are going to be grateful. They're ready for a change. They're going to thank you. Now, that's why I don't think that it's going to be a massive attack on those 2 countries. I think it's going to be a more isolated attack on those leaderships. and that's going to go a long ways to cut down on ammunition, rockets, things like that, getting over to Hamas, who's been attacking Israel. And there's been other people that have been attacking Israel also, but I think so taking out those two leaders is going to do a tremendous amount of good to bring peace into that area for a short time. Now, the Al-Sisi is very friendly towards Israel, and his son Mahmoud is also very friendly towards Israel. And so if Al-Sisi takes over a giant area encompassing southern Iran, he's going to be a friend towards the U.S. and Israel. And if he makes his son Mahmoud the king, the leader of the new defined area of the Kingdom of the North, that's going to include northern Iran, and I'm thinking also Turkey as a guess. We'll see. We'll have to play out. But I'm seeing that those are the two kings that are going to be referenced here. And so the one thing I'd really like to know, and I can't find out, is does Mahmoud have kids? They're trying to protect them. I can understand. They don't want to get them out in the limelight, and I can understand that. I would like to know, but anyways, I can't get that information. If anybody has it, I'd like to know. All right, so now let's go ahead and get back to this, and there's more interesting things. So now, prophetic point number 39. This is getting into Daniel chapter 7. So since we're going to be getting into Daniel chapter 7, let's go ahead and read a few verses out of Daniel chapter 7 to kind of get you familiar with it. Daniel chapter 7, verse 1. In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and a vision of his head upon his bed. Then he wrote the dream and told the sum of the matters. Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of heaven strove upon the great sea. And four great beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another. The first was like a lion, and had eagle's wings. And I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth, and made to stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it. And behold, another beast, a second, like to a bear, and it raised itself on one side, and it had 3 ribs in the mouth of it, between the teeth of it. And they said thus unto it, Arise, devour much flesh. After this I beheld, and lo, another, like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast also had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. After this I saw in the night vision, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible, strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it, and it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. So what is the meaning of those 4 beasts? We learn in verse 17, the angel gives the interpretation. Let's go ahead and read verse 17. These great beasts, which are 4 kings, which shall arise out of the earth. So Daniel chapter 7, the first few verses are talking about 4 kings. So now let's go ahead and look at prophetic point number 39. Daniel chapter 7 verse 4. The king, represented by the lion, will lose wings, and made stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it. So who is that king? Well, I think that it's King Charles. Now, King Charles is about 74 years old or so. And what's really interesting is that the Lion King and the Bear King and the Leopard King seem to live until the return of Christ in power and glory. Fascinating. Fascinating. So, King Charles, if he is this prophetic person, then something's going to happen to where we'll be able to recognize that the symbolism of him losing wings and being made to stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to him. So we're waiting for that to be fulfilled, to be able to say, yeah, that's for him for sure. But let's go ahead and look at prophetic point number 40, Daniel chapter 7, verse 17. We've read that, and that's telling us that these four beasts are for kings, not kingdoms. They're for kings. There's a big difference. The kingdom can have many kings during the course of its kingdom, but a king only has his own one life, right? All right, let's go ahead and look at prophetic point number 41, Daniel chapter 7, verse 5. This is the king that represents the bear. And who does that represent? My guess is that is representing Putin. And again, if that's true, then prophetically, Putin is going to live to see the return of Christ and beyond. What's really interesting about this prophecy about the bear is that it has 3 ribs in its mouth. And these 3 ribs tell the bear to go and devour much flesh. So what we're looking for right now is we're looking to see what represents the 3 ribs. Now, I was wondering if Russia taking over Crimea back in 2016, I think, is that representing one of the 3 ribs? Or will the 3 ribs somehow be represented out of areas that he conquers in Ukraine? So we're going to have to keep an eye on this, because we want to be able to identify the 3 ribs, because it's the 3 ribs that are going to tell him, Putin, to go and devour much flesh. And so apparently all this devastation that we're seeing over there in Ukraine is nothing compared to what's coming up. All right. So now prophetic point number 42. That's talking about the king that is represented by the leopard. And my guess is that's going to be President Xi of China. And so we're going to have to keep an eye on that and see if he fulfills prophecy. And one of the prophecies that we're told about is that dominion was given to it. So is China going to expand its area? And then that brings us down to 43 and 44. They're both from Daniel chapter 8, verse 8. So in Daniel chapter 8, verse 7, it had talked about how the he-goat just whomps on the ram that has 2 horns, and he breaks the 2 horns and stamps upon him. None can deliver out of his hand. And but then let's go ahead and read verse 8. Therefore the he-goat waxed very great, and when he was strong, the great horn was broken, and for it came up 4 notable ones towards the 4 winds of heaven. So you can see how that just doesn't sound like Biden. That Biden is waxed very great, and when he was strong, that just doesn't sound like Biden there, but it does seem to fit Trump. And when that person leaves power, whoever that leader is that attacks Iran and Turkey and removes Erdogan and Khamenei, when that U.S. leader leaves power, then the U.S. is going to split into 4 nations. We get more clarity on that in verse 21 and 22. In verse 21, it says, "And the rough goat is the king of Grecia, and the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king. Now that being broken, whereas 4 stood up for it, 4 kingdoms shall stand up out of the nation, but not in his power." We are talking about the United States splitting up into 4 nations. And my guess is that that's going to happen in 2025 to 2026. Wow. We covered it. We went through the information. And I hope that you can see that I'm not slicing, I'm not dicing, I'm not cherry picking. You've been reading along with me, and you can see that these are things that are just supposed to play out in that general order. And we see that 25 already are or have, and now we got these 19 that are going to be playing out. And you might not recognize it just with what we've been talking about, but let me just point something out to you. So what we're talking about happening is that the United States is going to have a leader. So we're going to identify who that leader is. And he's going to go over and he's going to remove Khamenei and Erdogan, those 2 leaders. And we've already identified these 3 leaders here. So that's 3, 4, 5, 6 that will be identified. But then we're going to be able to identify the king of the south and his prince, who becomes the king of the north. And again, I think that that's going to be Al-Sisi, the king of the south, and his son Mahmoud as the king of the north. So there's another 2 kings. I think that the lion king is represented by King Charles. The bear is by Putin, and the leopard is by President Xi of China. We need to have them fulfill some prophecy before we put some absolutes on them. I don't expect the United States to split up until 2025 to 2026, but we might be able to get a feeling for what the boundaries are going to be by the end of 24 of the new nations. They might be talking about it. We might be able to get an idea of who might be the leaders of those 4 nations as well. And so that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's going to be 10 leaders that are referenced in the scriptures that we're going to start to identify, in addition to the 5 that have already been identified here. That's huge. And we're going to be able to identify these 2 country boundaries. We might have a good feeling about these 4 when the United States is shaping up to split up. And then we should be able, we might be able to get some clarity as to for sure who these leaders are and what their country boundaries are as well. Just over the next 2 years, guys, just over the next 2 years. We're talking 1, 2, those 2 new countries. We're talking 4 here. That's 6 new countries This is so incredible. This is so huge. This is so important because this is a dividing. This is a dividing between those who are going to accept the mark of the beast compared to those who are going to reject it and are going to be for Christ. And for those who are for Christ, they got to do whatever they can to get away from being in a country that is going to eventually accept the mark of the beast. And there's so much more that we're going to be talking about. But I hope that this gives you more confidence in wanting to pay attention to what's happening, because this really does make sense, doesn't it? To me, it just falls in line. So anyways, thanks for the opportunity to be able to, that I can share this with you. I hope that you have found this helpful. I hope that you will take it to God in sincere prayer, and that you'll study these chapters and look over them more, and look over the material and look at my interpretation of them to see if it matches up with what you're feeling about it too. And well, there's just so much good that we can do. And I really do want to have us gather and petition Jesus to be our literal King, our wonderful King, our seen, our unseen King, like he was for the house of Israel back in ancient times when they were enslaved by Egypt, and God became their king, and he had those 10 plagues that he had Moses perform, and then Pharaoh finally let the people go, and God was their king. God led them out of there, and he took them over to the Red Sea, and Pharaoh's army, they came after them. They wanted to put them back as slaves. And what did the king do? What did our king do? What did Jehovah do? He caused a pillar of fire to come between the house of Israel. That's like 3 million people. And then you had the armies of Pharaoh, and they had that pillar of fire. It must have been a big pillar of fire to keep them separated, keep them apart from each other. And then what did Jehovah do? He parted the Red Sea, had the house of Israel cross over on dry ground. And then what did he do? He had the pillar that went away, and they had Pharaoh's army come into the Red Sea, going after the house of Israel. And Jehovah just brought the Red Sea together. The miracles went on and on and on. For 40 years, Jehovah had a pillar, a cloud by day and a pillar by night to guide the house of Israel. He fed them with manna for 40 years. Somehow, some way, he made it so that their clothes and their shoes didn't wear out. And the miracles went on and on and on. And then when it came time to clear out the area so that the house of Israel could have their inheritance, Jehovah was there, and he fought battles and helped them fight battles. And then what happened? After they got settled in, what did they do? They told Jehovah that they didn't want him to be their king. They wanted a human king. So sad, so sad. After all that Jehovah had done for them, they decided that they wanted to have a human king. In our day, the tables are flipped. And what I mean by that is that Jesus Christ inspired the Constitution and the Constitution of the 50 United States. They're designed in such a way that we could choose to be a good people. We could petition Jesus to literally be our king, like he was for the house of Israel. And in our day, as things are shaping up, as we're coming up to the time of the mark of the beast, I don't think it's going to be until about 2033 when the mark of the beast is going to be set up, somewhere around there. They're trying to set it up right now, no question about it. But have you ever noticed that their plans seem to get delayed and delayed and delayed? And I think that it's going to get delayed coming up here. And if you haven't heard about the Sixth Seal event, be sure to go over to the topics area and check out the information about the Sixth Seal. It's the worst catastrophic event since the flood of Noah's time. All right, guys. So in our day and time, when it is a separation between those who are going to be for the mark of the beast versus those who are going to be for Christ. We need Christ to be our King, seen and unseen, and we can do it. We can do it. He would love to see us do it. Wouldn't you love for us to do it? So we need to stand up. We need to let the people know that we are for Christ. We're not going to accept the mark of the beast. We are not for socialism. We are not for communism. We are not for the New World Order. We are for Christ. We are for freedom. And guys, this is the go time. This is it. We need to do it. So great talking to you. Thanks again for letting me share this with you. God bless.